డైరెక్ట్గా
ఆపన్ వేసుకోవాలా?
డైరెక్ట్ పిపిటి వేస్తున్నాను.
పెట్టేసి నాది సైడ్కి వస్తుందా? నేను కట్ చేసుకోండి, నేను చేసేట్టు అది కూడా వస్తుంది ఇక్కడ.
ఇప్పుడు వినబడుతుంది ఆల్రెడీ. సరిపోద్ది కదా మీకు?
Good morning, all of you. So in the last class, we have seen about the physiology of taste sensation. What are the different basic tastes, how it is perceived, and the pathway of our taste sensation we have seen. There are few things I would like to remind you that for any tasteful substance, in order to elicit taste, first it has to be dissolved with saliva. So saliva helps in the saliva helps in the perception of taste as it dissolves the tasteful substances, and also sometimes it also acts as a buffering agent whenever some irritant substances comes, so it will try to dissolve it and thereby diminishes its actions on the tongue. So whenever we take food, the sensation of food is a integration of both taste, smell, and other sensory stimulant, as well as the stimulations perceived by the chemicals released by food stuff. It is a whole lot of things. It is called as a flavor. The flavor is not only due to the taste perception, also sense perception, as well as other perception, especially the spicy nature of the food and other chemicals released by the food. So as I said, the food substances gives taste as well as the flavor in combination with other sensations. So the food also gives the satiety. Especially, as I said, the taste sensation is a relative one. Suppose once you are hungry, we may able to taste even otherwise non-tasteful substances. But once we are full, suppose, then even the tasteful substance may not be any more palatable to you. So it is a relative thing. Recently, due to the COVID lockdown, it has been observed in some tourist places where monkeys were there. They were normally given plantains. In usual course, they used to peel off the skin and they try to eat only the pulp. Now, when they are fed with plantains, they were eating the whole because it shows they are hungry. So as it says, Pasi doesn't know the ruchi. It means that the hungry doesn't have any taste sensation. So even the other untasteful substance of sometimes we end up eating when you are hungry. So with this, we'll complete the taste. Now we'll go to the today's lecture, that is about the physiology of olfaction or the odor perception. Now, the smell perception is also one of the special sense. In the sense, it is also essential for the maintenance life. It may not be for the human being. For the lower animals, especially, sense of smell is very much important to identify the food, as well as identify the enemy, to escape from the enemy, as well as to finding a suitable mate, so that every species living in this earth, they try to live and perpetuate their species. In order to maintain the perpetuation or continuity of species, they need to do reproduction, for which the sense of smell perception is very much useful in lower animals. Of course, it may not be the case in the case of human beings. So in that sense, the sense of smell is also a special sense, which is very much essential for the maintenance of life. So even in human beings, sense of smell gives pleasurable or maybe obnoxious, or sometimes it gives a protective. Say, for example, whenever there is a leakage from a gas cylinder, it makes you alarm to whether to close the cylinder or maybe escape from an eventful fire or etc. So that way, or even suppose sometime we may get a smell of burning things. So we may try to escape from that particular site in order to protect yourself. So in that case, it is again essential, not only for to receive a pleasurable smell, sometimes it also gives us a warning to escape from that particular site. So today, let us go into the physiology of smell perception. So human beings are normally able to perceive at least 1,000 to 4,000 different smell. It is a combination of at least 7 basic smells that about which we are going to see a bit later are odors. So in combination, we are able to perceive almost about 1,000 to 4,000 different smell perception due to mixing of these inputs at the neural cortex or the olfactory cortex. Of course, in human beings, the sense of smell perception is less studied as well as because it is more subjective and it is poorly developed when compared to the other lower animals where it is very well developed. So even in not only human beings, even the lower primates like apes, monkeys, etc., they are also comparatively the sense of smell perception is less developed. But in lower animals such as rodents, dogs, cats, etc., in these animals, the sense of smell perception is more or very well developed because it is indicated by the area of the respiratory or the olfactory mucous membrane where the sensor receptors are there. They are in a larger area, but whereas in human beings, the olfactory mucous the epithelium is hardly 2.5 centimeter square centimeter in each of the nostrils. That means altogether we have about 5 square centimeter area only. That area only or alone is capable of perceiving the smell. So that is the reason the human beings and other primates are called microscopic animals, but whereas those animals where sense of smell is very well developed or they have a larger area of olfactory mucus, they are called as macroscopic animals because in them it has got much more, in addition to the simple smell perception, it is also helpful in the mating behavior, etc. So that those animals are called macroscopic animals because we human being, we tap this particular property. That's why we use the dogs as a sniffer dogs in police and other squads in order to identify a culprit or maybe a bomb, etc. Whenever it is to identify those things, they use sniffer dogs because in those animals, the sense of smell perception is very well developed. They have a larger area of olfactory mucous membrane. Now, where the olfactory mucous membrane is located in human beings location, it is above the superior turbinate. Suppose when in the nostrils, in the upper 1/3 of the nostril, we have the, especially on the lateral side, we have turbinates or concave. In the superior turbinate or superior concave, and as well as in the medial aspect of that, in these areas, we will find the presence of the olfactory epithelium. Elsewhere, we have nasal epithelium, which is distinct from the olfactory epithelium in the sense the nasal epithelium in other areas, it doesn't have the receptor cells as well as the ciliary movements also diminished, and the olfactory epithelium histologically can be distinguished from the other area by having light yellow color pigmentation in the receptor cells. As well as they also have the presence of interspersed between the receptor cells or the Bowman's gland which secretes the mucus. Now let us talk about the olfactory epithelial cells, which is again made, or it is composed of 3 different type of cells. One is the receptor cells, so which are the free nerve endings, and which are about 10 to 20 million number in each of the nostrils. Of course, in each of these receptor or free nerve endings in turn gives rise to 6 to 15 or 20 microvilli. Microvilli, they are about 200 micrometer in length and about 0.3 micrometer in diameter. They are finger-like projections. They protrude and they remain embedded in the mat of the mucus secreted by the Bowman's capsule. Now, interpersonal between the receptor cells are the supporting cells or the sustentacular cells, which supports the receptor cells. And we have basal cells, which gives rise to the either supporting cells or receptor cells upon mitotic division. So especially the receptor cells, they have the lifespan of about 60 days. Once in 60 days, they get replaced, which is again the new cells comes from the mitotic division of the basal cells. So the Bowman's glands, as said, is located below the epithelium and open to the surface and secrete mucus. Especially within this mucus only, the free nerve endings or microvilli are there. So any odorous substance, in order to elicit a response, it has to get dissolved in this particular mucus in order to elicit its response. Now we can see, so this is the inferior, middle, and superior turbinate, and this is the area where the olfactory epithelium is located. The total area is about 2.5 square centimeter in each of these nostrils. So on top of it, you have olfactory, this olfactory mucus, this olfactory bulbs. You can see here clearly, this is the area where the olfaction or odor perception is perceived. In this particular area, this olfactory mucus along with the epithelium. This area. This is the cribriform plate of the ethmoid bone. So you can see there are holes or penetration. These the olfactory nerves, they pierce through or pass through the holes in the cribriform plate and end up in the olfactory bulb. So again, this again. Now the olfaction or the smell perception can take place through routes. Now, one is the nasal route. So by the sniff of, or when we inhale air, the odorous substance get dissolved in the air and reaches the olfactory epithelium. This is one. Other way, when we eat food, through this also the sense of smell perception also reach the olfactory epithelium. This is called the retronasal smell route. This is the regular smell route. This is the retronasal smell route. But in both either the case, it is the olfactory epithelium from where it reaches the olfactory bulb. So let us see the primary smell sensations. So as we know, especially in visual thing, there are only 3 primary colors which make up to lakhs and lakhs of colors in different permutation combinations. Similarly, as I said, human beings can perceive about 1,000 to 4,000 different smells, and it is again due to the various permutation combination of these basic or primary smell sensations. According to Amor, who classified one as the camphoraceous smell, next is the floral, this ethereal, pepperminty, musky, pungent, putrid. These are the 7 primary smell sensations. So for any particular odorous substance, in order to make to be perceived or in order to be smelled, it has to have certain characteristics or criteria. What are they? First and foremost, it has to be dissolved in the air and it has to be in contact with the olfactory epithelium. So here there are 2 different types of substances which can become a good odorant, and those substances are those molecules which are dissolved in air, or you can say we can easily dissolve in air, and which are lipid soluble as well as water soluble substance. Both can become a good odorous substance or odorant. It must be volatile, so that will be dissolved in air, and it should be water soluble and lipid soluble. Especially, as I said, it is volatile, it should be volatile. Then again, those substances are water soluble, can easily reach the mucous membrane where it can dissolve and it can bind to the specific receptors in the free nerve endings, as just we have seen. And especially for a lipid soluble substance to become an odorant, first it has to bind with the odorant binding protein, OBP. Then this OBP make it water soluble, and this OBP and odorant as a complex get dissolved in the mucous membrane mucus secreted by the Bowman's capsule and reaches the receptor cilia, which are located in the olfactory epithelium. Now let us see the various odorant substances and their thresholds. Of course, unlike the other few sensations, an odorant substance, in order to make it or for it to be smelled, even very little quantity, if it is given in the air, it is very sufficient. So for ethyl ether, even if it is at 5.83 milligram per liter of air, which is sufficient for it to perceive chloroform 3.3, pyridine 0.03, and oil of peppermint 0.02, and iodoform also 0.02, and butyric acid 0.009, and propyl mercaptan 0.006, and artificial musk it's about 0.0004, and the methyl mercaptan even at very low quantity 0.6 zeros followed by 4, even at that particular lowest quantity or concentration also we can able to perceive this particular odor substance. This is the substance which is found in the garlic, methyl mercaptan, which can be easily felt. Even just to open a peel off the garlic, even for from distant place also, you'll be able to perceive the smell of garlic because of this particular property. Now let us see the olfactory receptors. Each of the receptor is a neuron. So unlike the other sensation here, the neurons which are responsible for the perception of smell, they are directly open to the exterior. But elsewhere, they are either encapsulated, they are located within the body, but here they are directly exposed to the external environment. They have very short and thick dendrites with expanded ends. They are called olfactory rods, which have the cilia. And as I said, they are renewed once in few weeks. That's about once in approximately once in 60 days. So these are the receptor cells, and these are the supporting cells. Here you will find normally the base cells, which gives rise to both these two cells for their regular renewal. So from here, it is a myelinated, it is a bipolar cells, and some of the dendrites they get grouped into at least about 25 groups, and each one it will pierce through the cribriform plate in order to reach the olfactory bulb. They reach the olfactory bulb. These are myelin sheath. These are the axons. These are receptor cells. These are the cilia. They show movement as well. In this area, normally you will have the presence of mucus also. In the mucus, the water gets dissolved and again reaches the cilia. When upon binding of the water and substance to the receptor in the cilia, produce the transduction or the further neural signals reaching the area. This particular transduction process takes in the cilia. That how it takes place, we'll see in the next slide. The mechanism of stimulation or the transduction, how a water substance produce the electrical signals. The water substance combines with the receptors and the cilia, and this binding, of course, the receptors for this water substance are located on the cell membrane or the plasma membrane, and which are, in most cases, they are coupled with the G protein. The G protein, which is involved in the sense of olfaction, are called as G-wolf. Normally, we call GS or GI, G inhibitory and G stimulatory G proteins. In this case, it is referred as G-wolf, OLF, olfactory G protein. The binding of odorant to the cell membrane receptor coupled with G protein leads to the release of activated alpha subunit from the G protein, in turn which activates the transmembrane protein adenylyl cyclase, which leads to the formation of cyclic AMP from ATP. The produced cyclic AMP produces some of the intracellular cascade. In addition to that, in this case, especially for the smell perception, the increased cyclic AMP level induces the opening up of cell membrane cation channel. Cell membrane cation channel. This cation channel, in this case, it causes the influx of sodium as well as calcium. Sodium as well as calcium. So once sodium and calcium enter inside, because of their positive nature, which will cause the development of receptor potential. And once the receptor potential reaches the firing level, an action potential is formed or fired, and which will be conducted to the olfactory cortex by the various orders of neurons that we'll see in this sense. Once it reaches the olfactory cortex, where it is interpreted what type of smell it is, and all those things, and again the conscious analysis of smell is done in the olfactory cortex. This is the transduction. So in addition to this well-known pathway of adenylyl cyclase and G protein mediate mechanism, some of the water and substance, they also act through the IP3 pathway, the inositol, the 3-phosphate pathway that is also there, as well as the phospholipase C pathway along with the diazyl glycerol. IP3 diazyl glycerol pathway also exists for the transduction of the water substances. This is a pathway. So receptor cell axon, and it appears as the cribriform plate of the ethmoid bone. So this is a cribriform plate, and through which the axons they form into about 20 vessels groups. Each group passes through this ethmoid bone, which actually separates the nasal cavity with that of the brain. So in this particular bone, there are some holes through which are the olfactory nerve passes through this plate and reaches the olfactory bulb. You can see this is the cribriform plate, and these are the bundles of axons, which this is the cilia of the receptor cells, and which reaches the olfactory bulb through the piercing through these things. This is the olfactory bulb. Again, it is nothing but actions of the brain. It is the olfactory cortex, a part of the brain only, which extended here as a olfactory bulb. In the olfactory bulb, you will find 4 types of neuronal cells. One are the mitral cells, and the tufted cells, as well as you also have the granule cells as well as periglomerular cells, of which the mitral cells and tufted cells, they are the neural cells which they form synapses with the axons coming from the olfactory epithelium, through onto which the mitral cells and tufted cells form synapses. And but whereas the cells of granule cells as well as periglomerular cells, they also they are side by side. They are normally inhibitory in nature. So it is this is an example of feedback inhibition. Normally, the mitral cells and tufted cells, they form a connection with the granule cells as well as the periglomerular cells. They are the what you call internential neuron or interneurons. They are activated by the cells of mitral cells or tufted cells. In turn, once they're activated, they spread the impulse laterally and they try to inhibit the same mitral and tufted cells. That means this is to help to sharpen the signal. The lateral inhibition is just to sharpen the olfactory signal so that it is sharpened and reaches the olfactory cortex. So these are the internential neuron, interneurons, which are inhibitory in nature. They release GABA as an inhibitory neurotransmitter, thereby it causes inhibition. And the mitral cells and tufted cells, they direct synapses with the dendrites of the olfactory neuronal cells. And this area is called as olfactory glomeruli. These are the areas where the dendrites of the mitral and tufted cells form connections with the axons of the olfactory epithelium, the neuronal cells, the receptor cells. These are called the glomeruli. These are the glomeruli. Now it has been proposed that human beings are able to perceive many different odorous substances. Now there are theories which are proposed that each of these odorant have a different type of glomeruli dedicated for one particular odorant. Of course, it is not yet proven, but again, there are some evidence which also support this particular theory. From here, of course, it reaches the limbic cortex. Again, the same thing, which is given in a different perspective. This is the nasal mucous membrane. These are the olfactory receptors, forms connection with the mitral and tufted cells. And of course, and these connections form the olfactory glomerulus. Nothing but a tuft of the dendrites, both from the olfactory receptor cells as well as from the mitral or tufted cells. So again, we have the neighboring areas. We'll find granule as well as periglomerular cells, and they are inhibitory in nature. Of course, the axons of this mitral and tufted cells, they form the olfactory nerve, or nothing but the first cranial nerve. Is the olfactory. This is the olfactory bulb. These are the olfactory glomeruli. This is the olfactory nerve. The olfactory nerve, once it takes origin from this olfactory bulb, of course, it forms so many such nerves. They form olfactory tract and reaches the olfactory cortex. And before reaching the olfactory cortex, the tract, of course, divides into at least 3 different bundles or striae. They are called as the medial, lateral, and intermediate striae. You can see the olfactory epithelium. These are the glomeruli. These are the olfactory bulb. From here reaches the different parts. These are the olfactory tract, the bundle of olfactory neurons. This is receptor cell, and from here it reaches the various parts. You can say it reaches the piriform cortex, as well as it also goes into the amygdala. It's a part of, there are most of things are part of the limbic system, the entorhinal cortex and the hippocampus. And some of the fibers, there is a fiber reaches the olfactory tubercle. From some of the fiber goes to the thalamus, and they go to the, especially you will have within the olfactory bud itself, will have certain anterior olfactory nuclei. These are the dispersed neuronal cells from where fibers arise. They reach the contralateral, the olfactory bulb, which are normally inhibitory in nature. So this is how the inputs goes to the various different part of the olfactory cortex. Most of these part are concerned with the are the part of the limbic system. This is the part of the brain which is early developed or primitive to develop, and most of the activities related to the, you can say, emotions, feeding, reproductive behavior, etc., and other emotions and physiological activity related to that, they're all performed in this area. This is the area of the brain which is known to be developed first, and other areas of the brain they develop later. So the more primitive area, or you can say part of the neocortex. So again, as I said, from olfactory glomeruli, the olfactory tract of neurons, they form three bundles called medial striae, intermediate, and lateral. Medial striae, they end up in amygdala. It's a part of the limbic system. Again, from intermediate lateral, they reach different areas like piriform or peripiriform area, peripiriform area, and retroorbital orbitofrontal cortex, and anterior perforated substance. This also there along near in the olfactory bulb itself, and the anterior olfactory nucleus. Just I said, these are the area. Some of the dispersed nuclei are the neuronal cells, which gives axons, and they go to the contralateral side or opposite side, where it causes inhibitory action on the contralateral olfactory bulb, and they also reaches the entorhinal cortex. Especially the entorhinal cortex is responsible for the memory related to the smell perception. Some of the other areas are concerned with the feeding as well as secretions and other emotional aspect, the productive behavior, etc. They are all controlled by these areas, the limbic cortex area. From the olfactory cortex, signal reaches the orbitofrontal cortex, and it is of course, it is a asymmetrical distribution. Of course, the more activation occurs in the right side with the lesser activation on the left side, because that is number one. And it also reaches the hypothalamus. It also reaches the hippocampus, especially part of it, the entorhinal cortex. It is responsible for olfactory memory. So, and the olfactory impulses are projected both into the neocortex, especially for the perception, which is responsible for perception and discriminate various odors. Some are pleasant, some are pungent, or you can say obnoxious. Those things can be discriminated by the connections which are reaching the neocortex. And the limbic cortex, the limbic system, where it reaches the amygdala, etc., they are responsible for the motivational, behavioral, and other physiological aspects which are concerned or which are related to the odors or smell substances, which are then are integrated at the limbic cortex. So especially the olfactory memory, etc. Sometimes, as soon as even with your closed eye, a particular odor substance is given for you to smell, you can identify. Sometimes it is a biryani from maybe Paradise or maybe Alpha Hotel, or sometimes is a coffee made by your grandmother, etc. Sometimes you can identify because of you have been used for a particular smell, and you try to remember the smell or the odor substance for a longer time. Even with the smell, you can easily identify. Here, I would like to say something. Say, when we use the sniffer dogs for identification of culprits, some of the crime investigation with the police department, etc., each individuals, they have various, each one will have a peculiar odor or a smell, which is due to the secretions, especially the eccrine and apocrine glands. The secretions per se, they are odorless. Of course, these secretions undergo bacterial disintegration, especially our skin, which announces so many commensal bacteria. They in turn causes the disintegration of these secretions, and they give peculiar odor for a particular person. That's why whenever a crime scene, whenever a sniffer dog is brought to the scene, it will try to identify the odorous substance which is released from that particular individual, and it try to track the path followed by that particular individual. So that way the olfactory memory is useful in such investigations, etc. Even in human beings also, we can also identify, sometimes even the clothes worn by a particular person can easily be identified, suppose from that of the neighbor, etc. Even those who are sharing a room, we can easily identify the cloth belongs to whom, because they are usually used for that particular smell regularly. Again, the same thing in a given a different perspective. This is the olfactory receptors, from where it reaches the olfactory bulb. These are the glomeruli, and from where it reaches the pyriform cortex or the uncus, and it also reaches the of course, some of the fibers from the pyriform, they also reaches the thalamus, especially the medialis dorsalis of the nucleus of the thalamus, and it also related, it goes to the this is the lateral thalamus. It also reaches the orbitofrontal cortex. These are different areas which are all, most of they are grouped together as these are all part of the limbic system. These are the first to be developed. All these areas, the neuronal connections reaches there. The perception and discrimination and other related behavior are integrated, or you can say they are perceived in these areas. What are the special features about the smell perception vis-a-vis the other sensation? So in this case, the receptor itself is a modified neuron. So here the neuron is directly exposed to the external environment. It is the only place where neurons are in direct contact with the external environment. Number one. Elsewhere in the system, once a particular neuron is degenerated or damaged, of course, it will undergo disintegration. There's no more regeneration. Of course, the receptors are the neurons which they undergo regular regeneration, which are replaced by new cells once in 60 days. This is one of the special features about the smell perception. The other special feature, it involves only two set of neurons. So our receptor is a modified neurons. Again, from there it reaches the olfactory bulb. From there, you see the olfactory nerve or the first cranial nerve directly reaching the various areas of the brain. That means there are only two set of neurons involved. There is no third set of neuron. And almost all other sensations, they have a relay at the thalamus. But the sense of smell or the olfaction doesn't have a relay at the thalamus. Of course, it's a questionable thing. Now, there's a newer evidences which emerge is that even there is a relay even to the thalamus. Of course, which is a part of the neocortex, that means which is a newly developed area phylogenetically, evolutionarily. Of course, such number of such relay to thalamus are limited, and which are more concerned with the conscious analysis of the various odors. So for which even now the new evidence suggests that there is a relay even to thalamus. Of course, most number of fibers, they bypass the thalamus, which is one special feature about the smell perception compared with the other sensory perceptions. Now, next, olfactory signals do not reach the somatosensory cortex, but whereas they reach the orbitofrontal cortex. And it also, the impulse also reaches the limbic system. But normally, other sensation doesn't reach the limbic cortex. They reach the particular somatosensory cortex, from where projection may go to every area, including limbic system. But here, impulse directly reach the limbic system. Now, the other thing about the smell perception is the adaptation. Smell sensation shows a complete adaptation. Suppose wearing a particular scent, soon you will feel the smell of that particular scent, but after some time you fail to recognize the particular smell. Suppose you are wearing a particular scent, you enter a particular room, your friend might say, yes, you are wearing a very good scent. Of course, it will be last for some time. And after some time, it will fail to produce a response. This is, in a way, it is better. Suppose those who are working in the drainage workers, etc. Sometimes, to start with, they will have obnoxious smell. Then later they get used to it. Because there's something called adaptation. So later, the adaptation is done by both at the level of the receptor as well as the cortex. Both they contribute to adaptation. Thereby, a continuous presence of odor substance, we fail to perceive that particular smell sensation. Especially this adaptation is, this function is both at the receptor as well as CNS level. And to have this adaptation, there are something called some like CNG or CNG4A. Is one of the what you call neural gated channels which are responsible for this adaptation. Whenever such channels are being knocked out in certain animal studies where adaptation is lost. Now, the relationship between gustation and olfaction, that is the taste and olfaction. So whenever we have a common cold or etc., suppose even though the food reaches, loses its flavor because of absence of smell sensation, even we end up getting the food also won't be tasty because both smell and taste are interlinked, especially at the NTS level. So as I said, it is due to the stuffed nose, we are not able to perceive the taste. But though they may be normal, but of course, because of the integration, which doesn't happen, which gives normally the flavor, which doesn't happen because that we may not be able to perceive the taste. So as it is recorded, about 70 to 75% of what we perceive as taste actually comes from our sense of smell. So there's a strong integration between smell and taste. In the absence of smell, we will not be able to perceive the taste because of their close integration. Most of the thing what we perceive as taste, it actually comes from the smell. Our taste buds allow us to perceive only bitter, salty, sweet, and sour and savory flavors. The odor molecule from the food gives us the most our taste sensation because it is the integration of other sensations, in addition to smell, taste, and the texture and other sensations, and the chemical released by the food substance. So there's an integration. Now here is the sense of olfaction receptors, cribriform plate reaching the olfactory bulb and reaches the smell area. And here is the tongue, which is the taste bud taste receptors, which also go via NTS, reaches the again same smell and center, where they both get integrated. And this integration is very much essential for perception of even the taste. Now, what is the importance of the smell perception or olfaction? In food and sex motivated behavior, olfaction plays an important role in subhuman species, the lower animals, where the sense of olfaction is very much important. Of course, it's having minor or less role in human beings. In those lower animals, they secrete a hormone called pheromones. So they especially secrete these particular odorous hormones during the phase of estrus, or whenever they are in the sexual cycles. So they secrete these hormones, which are sensed by the counterpart or the partner, and in turn, which helps in the other reproductive behavior. Now, in those animals where the pheromones are being released and which are being sensed, and they have a special type of epithelium at the middle of the concave or the nasal septum midline, where they have an extended pouch called vemeronasal organs. In vemeronasal organ, where the receptors are there, they perceive the odorous pheromones, and in turn they send the signals to the hypothalamus, and which controls the reproductive behavior as well as. And this is the third pathway. This is nothing but otherwise called as accessory olfactory bulb. This is called as accessory olfactory bulb, from where signals reaches the hypothalamus. So this particular area is responsible for the reproductive behavior, which is shown by certain lower animals upon sense by the when they smell the pheromones. So it is also act as a protective sensation, even in human being as well as in other lower animals, because I said, so the advent of enemy in a particular area, the lower animals are able to sense it properly so that they escape from that particular scene. Even a human being, smell of burning, etc., as I said, smell of cooking gas, etc., will make it to fly from that particular area or run away from that area. It is one of the protective sensation which help us from escape. Now, disorders of sensory perception. Anosmia means loss of smell sensation. Hyposmia means diminished smell perception. Dysmia as well as parasmia, of course, both can, they are not two different things. They are wherein it is abnormal or disturbed smell perception. Let us talk about the anosmia and hyposmia. Where in hyposmia, that is about diminished sensitivity, and anosmia is complete absence of or loss of smell perception or smell sensation. It can occur due to the damage to the olfactory epithelium. It can happen as the commonest thing is a common cold or nasal polyps or nasal catarrh or even a severe sinusitis, allergic rhinitis, etc. In these cases, there is a blockage of the air which doesn't reach the sensitive area, which is the olfactory epithelium, because that the sense of smell may not be perceived. Or sometimes it may be due to the damage to the olfactory or to the cribriform plate due to certain injury to the skull, or it may be due to the damage to the olfactory bulb, or maybe certain intracranial tumors, etc. They might damage the olfactory pathway, or maybe the olfactory bulb, etc. can lead to anosmia. Now we are in the era or in the phase of COVID-19, which is again caused due to the virus called SARS-CoV-2. This particular virus, when it infects, then of course we get the disease COVID-19. Now there are various signs and symptoms of this particular COVID-19. One such symptom is the loss of smell sensation, which is again a good number of patients are suffering from COVID-19. They complain of loss of smell sensation. That is, anosmia is being found as one of the signs and symptom of the COVID-19 disease. So that thing about the anosmia, it can happen temporarily and are due to the cold, etc. Sometimes maybe due to whenever there's neural damage, it becomes persistent or maybe long term. Dysmia, dysosmia or parasmia, where there is a sensory smell, smell perception is there is a disturbed or other perverted smell perception, wherein a pleasant smell is perceived as obnoxious one, or other obnoxious one will be perceived as a pleasant smell, which can happen due to disturbance in the temporal lobe. In temporal lobe lesions, where there may be hallucinations. As I said, it may be visual hallucinations or maybe taste hallucination, also the smell hallucination, wherein a pleasant odor is perceived as a pungent or putrid odor and vice versa. That's number one. Number two, especially sometime in the certain viral infections, viral rhinitis, etc. Some of the infections, wherein sometimes some of a good number of such the olfactory receptors may get damaged. When they regenerate, sometimes there may be mismatch. The new cells, which is suited to perceive a particular odor, may join with the respiratory or the olfactory glomerulus or bulb, which is concerned with the perception of some other smell. So in such case also the parasmia can be found, or sometimes it may be due to intracranial tumors. Sometimes this parasmia is also observed. And there is a condition called hyperosmia. Hyperosmia means increased smell sensibility, which is a common case or observation of adrenal insufficiency. Whenever there's adrenal insufficiency is there, so such persons the sensory smell perception is increased. Amongst the male and female, normally the fairer sex, that is the females, they perceive the smell perception better than the male counterpart, as well as the smell perception is increased during ovulation, as well as during their reproductive cycle, especially when they are pregnant, the smell perception normally increases. As I said, olfactory hallucination is due to temporal ablations. Sometimes it will end up in getting parasmia. One more syndrome called Kallmann syndrome, which is a congenital thing wherein there is a hypogonadism, which is also associated with the loss of smell sense. These are some of the disorders which are related to the smell perception. I hope you have understood. If you have any queries regarding what all we have discussed regarding smell, etc., you can feel free to message me to my number. So I'll try to clear your doubts. With this, I call it a day. Thank you for your patient listening. Thank you. అయిపోయింది వచ్చిందా బాగా వచ్చిందా వాయిస్ క్లియరా పర్లేదా లేక పెంచాలా ఇది స్టాప్ షేర్ చేసిన పెట్టిన స్టాప్ షేర్ చేసిన ఇక్కడ ఏదో వచ్చింది అది స్టాప్ షేర్ చేసిన
ఇది ఇక్కడ అవ్వాలి
ఓకే సార్ బాగుంది వెరీ గుడ్ బాగుందా ఏం చేస్తాం కదా వెరీ గుడ్ నాకైతే ఇబ్బంది ఉందా లైట్ అదే మామూలుగా నీళ్ళు తాగలేదు
చిన్నది వస్తుంది సౌండ్ గరగర వస్తుంది క్లాస్ లో వచ్చింది
ఫుల్
అంతా రాలేదు అలా స్టార్టింగ్ లో వచ్చింది ఒక 2 minutes అలా బేస్ తగ్గింది
ముందు గట్టిగా మాట్లాడిన తర్వాత మన సబ్జెక్ట్ మొదలెళ్ళినప్పటికీ మన గొంతు పెంచాలని మర్చిపోతాం
నేను విన్నాను అదే గొంతులో నుంచి ఒక సౌండ్ వచ్చింది అందుకేమో ఇబ్బంది ఉందా అని అడుగుతుంది అంతే లేదా ఫోన్ అది సార్ వస్తాడు సార్ ఇంకా లేదు కనెక్ట్ అవ్వలేదు ఆఫ్ లో ఉంది సార్ జస్ట్ వీడియో కనబడుతుంది
ఇందులో ఉన్నది ఇంతవరకు
అదా బయట అంటారా
లాగుతుందా
ఇక్కడ పెట్టుకోండి సార్
అలా కాదు అదే అందులో కనిపించే ఏరియాను డిమార్కెట్ చేసుకుంటున్నాను ఈ మధ్యలో పెట్టుకుంటే ఖచ్చితంగా
మిడ్ లోనే పెట్టుకోండి
ఈ మధ్యలో అంతే కదా
లాంగ్
ఇక్కడ వేసుకున్న ఏరియా ఇక్కడ ఉంది ఈ ఏరియా ఏమో ఇక్కడ ఉంది
సార్ ఇక్కడ నుంచి ఈ పార్ట్ లోనే లాగేయండి అంతే మిడ్ లోనే ఏదైనా వేయాలన్నా
ఇక్కడ వేసేసుకుంటే సరిపోతుంది
నాకు తెలిసి వస్తుంది సార్ బోర్డు మొత్తం వస్తుంది
అంతేగా
అంటే వాళ్ళకి అది రివర్స్ లో కనబడుతుంది అనుకుంటా
రివర్స్ లో కనబడితే మనం రివర్స్ లో రాయలేమే మనం రివర్స్ లో రాయలేమే మరి ఇందులో ఏం వస్తుందో నాకు తెలియదు కానీ చేసుకోవాలి
వాళ్ళకి రివర్స్ అయిపోతుంది
వాళ్ళకి చేసుకోవాలి
చూసేసరికి ఇది కనబడుతుంది
ఇక్కడ మనకి రివర్స్ ఇక్కడ రాయలేము రైట్
అందుకే అమ్మ ఫోన్ చేసి
Hello.